All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to our Southern California first time home buyer market update. It's Tuesday, it's April 21st, and we kind of have a bit to talk about. And I want to know whether you think I am right about this or not, because we have two kind of interesting things happening and going on in the market right now, especially as it pertains to condos. And we've talked about condos before, and I'm a big fan of condos if you know how to do your due diligence. So if you are an entry level buyer out there, the reality is condos often represent that first rung on the home buyer ladder. That's the first home that people can generally afford. Now, a lot of people have been talking about that first rung of the homeownership ladder being broken, that's no longer a viable option because a lot of the issues that condos have been facing. But I think things are about to turn around for you. And I think if you're a really smart buyer and you're willing to take a look and kind of re-examine this, and especially if you're willing to do the due diligence on condos, I think that is incredibly important right now. But let's go ahead and get started with the market stats. So the first thing that we are talking about is our closed prices. And if you take a look at this, you're going to notice something that I think is sort of fascinating to me. And that is that the entry-level single-family home market, at least at this entry-level end of the market, and I want to remind everyone of something. This graph is not median home prices. This graph is the first quartile. And I know I talk about what this means and why we pick this. It's because we're not looking for the median home. We're looking for something that's representative of the entry level home. So if you take a look at this, this is that entry level quartile. So think between the cheapest and the most expensive, it's a quarter of the way up that chart. So 25% of the houses are going to be less expensive than this, and 75% are going to be more expensive. So if we take a look at this, it's kind of fascinating to see how flat the single family home market has been, and the condo market has been a bit more volatile. But what I find really interesting is that the condo market's actually been on a little bit of a tear lately, with that number going up, but I don't think it's going to last. And that's because a lot of the problems that have been facing condos as a whole are still present. We have associations in financial distress for a lot of reasons. We have a lack of transparency in condos, people being hit with emergency assessments, things like that. And I think that's generally made buyers afraid of condo purchases. But that is also an opportunity if you can spot the good condos from the duds. If we take a look at our monthly payment, this one's kind of fascinating to me. We've seen a little bit of easing on the interest rate front the last week or so. You're going to see that we're still in a better spot than we were at this point last year for both condos and single family homes. So if you're the kind of buyer that feels like you've sort of missed some kind of boat, you haven't. You are still in a better position payment wise than you would have been a year ago at this time. If we take a look at our minimum household income required, again, this is assuming 5% down, and you have no other household debts. What are we looking at? Well, basically on the condo front, you're right around $112,000 to be in that entry level condo, which is that 2-bedroom, 2-bath attached unit. If you're in a single family home, that minimum income is just under $148,000. Now, two things that are important in this stat. One is that this is household income. So this is all the income earners in a household. The second thing that's important to remember is this is assuming no other debt. So that means no student loans, no car payments, no whatever. All those will require higher qualifying incomes. But to me, the part of this that is somewhat inspiring is this is for a reasonable down payment, right? We're talking 5% down payments, not huge down payments. You know, a household with two people, each earning $60,000, it is still possible to buy an entry-level condo in that LA Orange County market. Now, if we look at our absorption rate, this is one that tells me the condo situation that those higher prices are maybe short-lived, or that's an artifact of our sampling, right? We're seeing a 65% absorption rate for our single family homes. That's about where we were at last year. This market feels a lot like where we were at last year. And we've got at 45% our condo absorption rate, and that has actually taken a dive from last year's, or from last time we measured this last month, where it was at 57%. So I actually think that condo market is easing a bit. And remember that that closed price chart, that is telling us where the market was 30 to 45 days ago. Now, if we take a look at our total inventory, we do see that number going up, right? And that number is about the same for single family homes as it was last year, but that number is actually a bit higher than at this point last year for our entry level condo. So again, another one to put in that condo column as something that says that market's going to be a little bit weaker. That market's going to have a little bit more room for you to negotiate. And if you are a first time homebuyer, like I said, if you are very astute about your purchasing and your due diligence, this can be a great option for you. If we take a look at our 14-day still active percentage, remember, higher means a less competitive market, lower means a more competitive market. You know, we see condos again, there's a recent uptick. All these things point to me to saying condo softness in the coming weeks. Our entry-level single-family home is actually a little bit lower than it was at this point last year, indicating a market that is slightly more competitive for buyers than it was at this point last year. And I'll tell you, one of the things we're noticing out there is there's really two effects that we're seeing in that entry-level single-family home market. The first effect is that there's a high concentration of demand. So if there's a home that you fall in love with, everybody else is falling in love with that home too, and that is affecting your ability and your leverage. The second thing that we're noticing about that single family market is that it is very, very reactive to interest rates. So if interest rates have a great week, we find that next weekend, right, of open houses, everybody's busy and it's more competitive with more offers. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. Now, if we look at our week supply of homes, this is kind of the final piece of information for me that really says we're entering a period where condos are going to be more affordable, relatively speaking. And that is, if you look at that inventory, this is the relative inventory, right? So this is attempting to measure not just the absolute number of condos, but the relative inventory, which is how many weeks of inventory do we have based on how fast condos are selling. That went from a very strong 14 weeks jumping to almost 20 weeks. So take note of this. These things are very good predictors of where the market is going to be in the next couple of weeks and what you're going to see out there and experience. Now, if we look at the single family home entry level market, that is different, right? That's a totally different story. Did that go up a little bit? Yes, but it is almost exactly the same as the number that we had last year. And I think it's contrasting and comparing what's going on in the condo market versus what's going on in the single family home market that really is going to help weave and tell that story. Anyhow, I want to thank you for watching. We love doing these videos. We love giving you expertise and information to make better real estate decisions. If you are looking, or you know someone that should be a homeowner here in Southern California, absolutely, we would love to talk with them and lend them our expertise. Don't hesitate to reach out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and we will see you again real soon.